Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Sowing Seeds panel. This panel is about financial literacy. I was going to give it just a few more minutes for our second panelist to join, so just bear with us. Thank you. Hi, everybody. So now all of our panelists are here, so we can just go ahead and get started. So I will introduce our panelists. First, we have Dr. Kanisha Hall, who is a board-certified anesthesiologist, sexuality counselor, published author, and media personality. She's a native of Shreveport, Louisiana. She graduated with honors from Louisiana Tech University with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and a second Bachelor of Science in Bioscience Technology from the Thomas Jefferson University. Dr. Kanisha ventured to Sagamihara, Japan, to complete her fellowship in cytopathology at Kitasato University. She received her doctorate of medicine from Howard University and later completed her residency in anesthesiology at the Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center. Dr. Kanisha is currently a practicing anesthesiologist, practicing perioperative, palliative, and addiction medicine across several states. And then our next panelist is actually a medical student. We have Andrew Willis, who immigrated to the United States from Guyana, South America, when he was 9 years old and grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Andrew loves financial literacy and entrepreneurship. He grew up knowing nothing about the stocks, real estate, or starting a company. However, in 2018, he was introduced to stock investing and was immediately intrigued with the dynamics of the market. This progressed into learning about other avenues of investing, eventually culminating in the creation of a domestic company that operates within the realm of real estate and an international construction and development company in his home country of Guyana. Andrew plans on using this revenue generated and the connections made through his MD to build learning community centers aimed at addressing the socioeconomic disparities that adversely impact health outcomes in marginalized communities like the one he grew up in. He's set to graduate from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine in 2025 and has applied the anesthesia residency. So, thank you all so much for joining us today. And we can just get started. So, can you share a bit about your journey and how you became passionate about financial literacy, especially for medical professionals?
Am I first?
Sure.
So, in my immediate family, I am the only medical professional. My mother is retired, 35 plus years, JP Morgan Chase. My dad was a salesman and a very street smart entrepreneur. My brother holds his MBA and works as far as like supporting platforms for traders. So I'm the only one of medical background, but strongly influenced by my dad growing up on the importance of not just financial literacy, but true financial freedom. That being the goal of loving what you do, but also the morning you wake up where you don't have to do anything and you can afford to live. And also to create, opportunities for, the community from which I come from. And growing up with the quote unquote American dream of owning a home being far and farther out of our reach. I started my original career. I started out in investing, aside from being a creative, a musician, which is how I actually afforded. That was my first actual career. I was a paid actual musician, is how I put myself through undergrad, aside from scholarship and cost of living, and then getting involved in real estate investments while I was training to become a physician, and to have years where I made more money not being a doctor than being a doctor. And then as my career has progressed in medicine, knowing that there is a business side to medicine that allows you to still take care of your patients and still be a good doctor, but not worry so much financially when you take care of business, which has been even more important in this course of my life as a physician, because I am an independent practice entity. Dr. Kanishal is her own corporation. I don't work for hospitals, I contract with hospitals. So that has granted me a lot of financial freedom in my career to do the best that I can and take care of my patients and not worried about the practice affording itself.
Dr. Hall, I have a lot of questions to ask you after this is over. It's very nice to meet you, and I'll be on the panel with you.
I'm so
um,
excited when she said anesthesia. Yay! Okay, I'm trying
I
to
just,
contain myself.
I was also very excited to find that out. For me, like I said, I grew up in Guyana, and my family and I moved to Brooklyn, New York, in Brownsville when I was 9, and it was my mom, my stepdad, and I had two older brothers. And my mom kind of supported us on. It's funny enough, she's a security guard for J.P. Morgan Chase down in Manhattan, and she's done that for 20 something plus years now. And so I worked in their mailroom back way back in the day when I first started college when I was 18. Um, but for me, we have my family always instilled kind of that immigrant mentality of always saving your money. So they do not trust, or they do not trust the stock market. They don't trust anything that they can't hold and feel. So that was kind of the background that I grew up with. So I had very great saving habits. I worked several jobs. I didn't start medical school until I was 28 years old. So I had worked several jobs and always saved my money, but never really learned about investing. It was just by chance. Well, when I was leaving for Arizona, I spent 3 years there at the NIH. My brother came and he had just gotten into the stock market, but he was just kind of buying real estate investment trust stocks, which is just a type of financial instrument you can buy in the stock market. And then he showed that to me, and then I just naturally curious. I studied applied math. I should mention that also. I studied applied math, and kind of when he showed that to me, and I just understand how all of these different variables have an impact on stock prices, and there's different ways to do analysis. My preferred method was kind of reading stock charts, accumulating data from the past couple months, past couple years, and then using some different tools that they had available. That kind of just got the wheels turning, and then it transitioned from that when my brother and I started to look into um, real estate, and the having that tangible, that real asset, and also the benefits that come along, not just short term but long term, that we could get into a lot more, but the cash flow, the tax benefits, especially as you like become a higher income earner. And again, that again fascinated me. Started learning everything we could about that, and in 2019, 2020, we bought our first property. And unfortunately, the pandemic hit, but that kind of allowed me the opportunity to work remote from my job at the NIH. So I flew over to Texas where my brother was. We bought our, because I saved up a couple of dollars. We combined our money, bought our first property cash, and him and I spent maybe 5 months just working together side by side after work every day, rehabbing and fixing up this property, and using the money that our own money. And I remember it was January 3rd or something of 2021. I looked at my account. I got paid on the first. By the third, I had a single dollar in there, and him and I just looked at each other and we're like, "Damn, we got to make it." But luckily, we finished that property. We refinanced it, paid off all our debts, and then that kind of just got the ball rolling. And we started our real estate portfolio. And throughout medical school, I've been keeping up with that. He's shared a lot of the responsibility managing the day to day since I've been in school, but we got a great team around us, and it's been a wild ride. Definitely a lot of stressful days, and but I wouldn't trade a day of it.
Thank you guys so much for that. So our next question is like, for example, somebody like me, all this money talk is going over my head. What would be your best advice for beginners who are trying to be serious about financial literacy?
I would definitely say stay away from real estate right now. At least while you're in in training. And the reason why I say that real estate is a great investment, but it truly is, in my experience. Everybody's ride is different, but it's definitely a roller coaster from several conversations I've had with people. It's a risk versus reward. You're going to get more reward the bigger risk you take, and you don't have those type of risks to take in training. My first exposure to real estate was growing up. My dad managed rental properties, and like I said, I was a daddy's girl, so I knew what Saturdays were like. I think I'm one of the few physicians you may have met that knows how to lay ceramic tile, because he did a lot of the work himself, and I wanted to learn. I know what it's like to clean up a rental property after eviction. I know the eviction process. I know the sheriff, how to call, when to post. But this was my childhood. This was me going around with my dad and seeing him manage that. So I didn't actually get into that form of I didn't have an urge to get back into real estate until, unfortunately, losing him. And it made me feel close to him. But it was truly, truly, it has never not been, I've never been hands-on involved in real estate and it not been a wild ride. So that's why I say I don't think it's the best thing to do while you're in training, because again, first thing foremost, I need for you to become a doctor, and I need for you to become a physician, because we short out here. We need y'all. So the golden first is I had a motto in medical school, which was afford your passion. Stay in the books, get your education, become the doctor you dream to be, to afford your passions. There is passive, which is what I do now, which is passive real estate investment via crowdfunding or investments that my financial people find for me that are vetted, but it's nowhere big of a return as doing all the work yourself, but it's still rewarding. So where would I start off with? Something safe and something that's not very thought-provoking is guaranteed high interest investments, whether they are high interest savings accounts, whether they are annuities. But I would stay low risk and something that is not time consuming. I know a lot of medical students during the pandemic who also got involved in day trading and Forex, which is still something that takes a lot of mental fortitude. And maybe I'm old school, I just don't advise it, because you can't be worried about your studies and worried about the outcomes of your investment before you've actually even made money. I feel the better time to really, really take more risk, and also this is a great time to seek education as far as different financial avenues, from stocks and bonds to EFTs to mutual funds, because I didn't know anything about that actually until I started reading more and learning about that during residency. But that's something you can do, is educate yourself during medical training. And I advise residents to get their financial advisor and team put together in residency. And like, oh, I don't have any money. Well, when you find you an advisor that's willing to take you on when you're a resident, one, they know what they're doing. And two, they understand that you're at the beginning of what will be a very prosperous career. And that's when you want to find them, not when you're already making six figures and they want a percentage of it. When you meet somebody in residency, and there are specific financial advisors, and you can take recommendations from your attending, from other residents. There are specific financial advisors who invested in physicians, that know that you're not coming out of medical school. They know that you're going to have to more than likely manage your student loan debt, whatever it might so be, and are willing to grow with you. That's someone who's willing to invest with you and in you. I have 3 different financial advisors because I make them compete, because in competition it is great reward. Like I said, my mom's retired from JP Morgan Chase, so I have investments accounts with them, but I've also worked with Fidelity, Northwest, and currently Merrill Lynch. But they all get quarterly performance reviews, and that's determines where my funds go, because you don't make money unless I'm making money. And they are very aware of each other, and they know that they are in competition with each other. And the weakest link shall be terminated. But I also have a financial advisor that I've had since I was a resident, which I use more so as a true advisor on diversifying from just investments to there's no one avenue of investing. And the more you know, because none of this is actually taught in medical school. And aside from investing, I encourage physicians to learn about business, the difference between LLCs and S Corp, and tax structures and tax shelters and estate planning. You are never too young to start estate planning. Like, I've learned so much about trusts in the last 2 years that is very essential into building generational wealth. So I just found out, and a lot of people don't realize this, I have a daughter, whatever I assign in her trust, or in my trust that is bequeathed to her, no matter who she marries, no matter the prenup agreement, whatever she does in life, nobody can touch it. Ever. They can't even sue it. They can never come out. So it's perpetually invested and protected for her and for her benefit, no matter what turns she takes in life, which was very interesting to learn. So I think medical school should be about saving, about being learning how to be fiscally responsible, um, and taking lower risk as far as like investments or saving. Resident will allow you some more, I believe. Probably not the first year, probably not intern year, but I feel like just residency, balancing work and that educational component and being exposed to other professionals to get great advice would be a great time to really branch out and find other avenues. And it's not a whole lot, but you'll be surprised what you can do and what you can grow on a residence income. It's not impossible. And I say that acknowledging my bias that the cost of living when I was a resident is not the cost of living of what is now. I do acknowledge that. That is my bias. I apologize. But still, that's why it's important to also seek knowledge and educate yourself and ask questions and ask for referrals as far as like who are residents banking with, the importance and difference between a credit union and a large consumer bank, establishing that relationship with the credit union. All of these are great questions and great education points that you want to do now, so that when the money does start coming in, you know what to do with it.
Dr. Hall dropped a lot of great pearls again. I will definitely echo two things that you said early on. The first one is I would highly not recommend starting a real estate company during medical school. Um, I mean, again, I think I was very fortunate that I had a great team backing me. But even with that team, it's very stressful having to study for step two and finding out that you owe a significant sum of money on some interest that after a specific loan product didn't work out. Okay, may or may not be speaking from experience. But I definitely second that. And also again, as an avid trader, I also second what you said about regarding forex and day trading. I would also personally not recommend. I used to do it when I first started. Maybe the first semester. Realized it was unsustainable, but also kind of came to another realization: the less I traded, the more money I made. So that's there's kind of this idea. It's called the tin can strategy, which is kind of what we're alluding to, and it's essentially they did a study and they found that people who opened an account and put money in that account and completely forgot about it, they actually made more than the people who are actively investing every day. And it took me a long time to kind of learn that lesson. And if you're passionate and you really love it, then go, by all means, go for it once you finish your training and you're like a full-fledged doctor. But until then, I would definitely kind of echo those two sentiments. Don't start a real estate company in medical school. Kind of focus on the education, and then also the second one is, just use that tin can strategy. If you put your money, open up. I personally like to use Robinhood. Open that account up. Anything that you won't miss. If you don't need this money for the next 2 3 years, then you just take that, and even if it's 5 10 15 $20, anything counts, because the longer you take advantage of compound interest, the better off you'll be. So any amount of money that you won't miss for a significant period of time, you take that and you just invest it in the S&P 500. You can also open up an IRA account, and just put as much as you can in there. The maximum every year is like 6,500, I believe. But and then again, once you start residency, you can continue adding to that, and then take advantage of compound interest for a long time. I won't go into the details of an IRA, but I highly recommend. If I don't care how old you are, if you have a job and you have any amount of money that you can put away for a long period of time, look into opening an IRA account. That's a first one. Another thing that I would say, a lot of my classmates when I started medical school, they didn't have a credit card, and I would recommend getting a credit card with a very low credit limit, $500, $1,000 max. You put all of your monthly expenses on the card, and then at the end of the month, you pay off that balance. And so every month, you just whatever your disposable income would have been, you spend those things on the credit card, and then you pay it off every month, so you're not carrying a balance, and the credit card company isn't charging you interest. So I think those are the very two in addition to Dr. Hall said, some additional things that I would say. And in terms of one more quick story to kind of bring home this last point. I have a friend. They graduated law school, and they were very excited. I was very excited for them. But they were graduated at like 25, 26 years old. They had about $150,000 in student debt, and they got a pretty good job coming out right out making like $100,000. They called me and they said, Andrew, I'm thinking about getting a car. I just got my license 2 weeks ago, um, and I think I'm gonna get a BMW. I said, friend, don't get this BMW. They start a person. Their monthly payments, including insurance, was gonna be about $1,000 or $1,200 a month, right? I said, friend, don't get this BMW. You're a new driver. You're living in New York City. They're gonna jack your car up anyway, and you're parking on the street. You're not. You don't even have a garage. You're parking on the street because you're still living in an apartment. I said, go buy a nice little used car for $3,000-4,000. That at that time that was a reasonable price. But go buy a cheap used car that you don't mind getting banged up. Learn how to drive a little bit. Wait till you get a garage. Um, but they were too excited, so they didn't listen. Their car got the whole side got scraped. They were going to get it fixed. They drove into the little, they have the little rails at the garages, at the repair shop. Drove into the rail, messed up the car, needed to pay more to fix it. And they called me about a year and a half later, like, you know what, you were right. So I would say I know it's like very exciting once we like, we haven't been making money for the last 8-10 years because we've been on this grind. So it's very tempting to go as soon as we get a little bit, go out and spend it all. But I would highly cautious you against that. And again, do what Dr. Hall recommended. Link with a financial advisor. Say, hey, how can I attack my student loans? How can I take advantage of setting up myself for retirement now on a resident salary? Because if you can do it on $60,000-70,000 a year, when you're making 300 plus, you'll be fine. And so I think that's the kind of little tidbit that I would add to that.
Can I just piggyback on his story? Because I have a great bit of advice for my graduating medical students. You're not the only one. It's like I don't know what it is. It's like an epidemic. When you finish medical school, you have been delayed gratification. Everybody wants to go get a shiny new car. And you don't realize when you get through with residency orientation, they're going to tell you where you're going to park. And that's where all the residents are going to park. It may be in a garage. It may be on the street. I don't know of any hospitals that don't have designated parking for your residents. Nobody's going to care. Go on Turo and go ahead. I will allow you this one splurge. Go on Turo and rent the car of your dreams. Drive that thing on your day off. Just get it for a day and satisfy that urge. Because that one-time splurge, I will allow. But 60 to 72 months of $1,200 car payments is beyond irresponsible. And you don't understand how much damage you're going to do, not only to your financial planning going forward, but how much you will have to sacrifice even more to sustain that in residency. Splurge the $300, $500 daily rental, drive that Porsche Panamera wherever you want to, satisfy that itch, go get you a Honda Civic and sit down somewhere. The second thing I left out is your social network. All of your friends cannot be doctors. You don't need all your friends. You got your classmates. You have SNMA, which will turn into NMA. You have mentors. You got to work with doctors every day. Please get out of that bubble. Have a friend that's a CPA. Oh, your friend that's a CPA should be your best friend. You should take them out to dinner quarterly, okay? You need a friend that's a CPA. Having a law student, lawyer friend is never a bad idea. Someone with an MBA or finance major, make great friends. Friends that have marketing, journalism, communication skill backgrounds. Build your social network. You're on college campuses with people with a lot of interest and a lot of education and a lot of expertise that's not your expertise. So network, build your social network. work and get out of the physician bubble, because physicians are notorious for not being financially responsible.
Thank you all so much. These are gems that you are dropping off. So moving on to our next question, which you just said, physicians are notorious for not being financially smart. What are some common financial mistakes that you see students making, and how can they avoid them?
It commonly, we take out more student loan debt than we actually need. And again, I might be coming from my bias of things. People don't realize I went to medical school in 2004 and 2000. I'm just realizing how long ago I went to medical school. I apologize. I went to medical school in Washington, D.C. at Howard University. I did not live in the plushest of neighborhood, but still at my time, my rent was more than my parents' mortgage back in Louisiana. Actually, my rent was more than my mortgage on the house I bought for residency, because I came back to Louisiana for residency. So instant gratification versus delayed. When you're considering residency, I want you to go to the institution of your dreams where you feel like you're going to be trained to be the best physician that you can be. But you have to consider cost of living. There are great residency training programs in whatever specialty that you want to be in. You do not have to be in New York City. Because at the end of the day, and everything is dependent upon specialty. You can find a great program that can train you with, and you might have to compromise on where you may end up living. And I know you guys don't get a whole lot of decision in that, but when you're ranking those programs, I need for cost of living to be in the consideration. I'm not saying it needs to be one in the top 3 of considerations, but I know a lot of residents that some of it had to do with program recognition, but that wanted to be in these large, big cities and didn't even equate to program like you're not at Sinai, you're at SUNY. I mean, you're not at Georgetown. You're not at National Children's Hospital. You don't have to be in DC. You don't have to be in Cali. You don't have to be in NYC. It's a great place to get a first job when they're offering you moving expenses and a signing bonus. But for training, you do not have to be in these high cost of living areas. If you have lived your entire life on the East Coast, in the Midwest, come on down to the South. We're nice down here. The cost of living, so he just told you about, I'm sure Texas, I'm in Houston, Texas, by the way. I'm sure Texas treated you well. Did you have fun when you, see? I just want that to be a consideration. 2, we already talked about the car. Third, but when you buy your first, some people will not be buying their first home. But when you are buying your first home after medical training, I need for you to research and understand the lending loans that are available to you just as a physician. Even as a resident, you can get a physician's mortgage. And which financial institutions, off the top of my head, I know Bank of America, Regions, another BBVA. I don't know how nationally recognized they are. There are several institutions that have specific lending programs, specific mortgage programs, specific lending programs, as far as like signature loans, lines of credit, specific programs specifically for physicians. Okay. So educate yourselves about this. Also, another great reason to engage a financial advisor, because I'm pretty sure they know somebody that they would trust. Because even with specific physician lending products, there's always a scam. So you want to make sure that you're with a legitimate loan servicer and provider, and become educated about the Small Business Association, because whether you realize it or not, your profession, you are the business. Learn about yourself as a business entity. And I still hope the SBA will be around when you guys need it. But they have physician programs. They have specific programs for health professionals as well, at lower interest and lower credit considerations, that you can still take advantage of when you are a resident, because the only requirement is that you actually have a doctorate in medicine, not that you're practicing. I think that's it.
I don't know if have much to add to that one. The one thing that I would say is that again, seconding that idea of I grew up in New York City. I'm the biggest city rat you'll find. Nobody loved the streets of New York more than me, right? But like as I've gotten older, I was 25 when I left New York for Phoenix, and what I realized in Phoenix, at the time I was able to get a I was able to buy a condo, and my total mortgage payments, including HOA and everything, was $800 a month. At that time, I think it was actually 750. We lived in Section 8 housing in New York City and still paid $1,500. And so when I was moving to one of the biggest considerations, like in choosing medical school, was I would have loved to go back to New York, and I had the opportunity, but like you said, it was SUNY Downstate, and no offense to SUNY Downstate, because again it's 10 blocks from my house, but it was SUNY Downstate or the University of Pittsburgh, and it was a non decision for me. As much as I'd love to be back home and love to be closer to my family. But again, in this like residency decision, I never envisioned myself going to Columbus or Cleveland. But when I found, or preferably staying at Pitt, but like when I found out that, people there in the coastal cities, I'm going to be working 75 hours a week, 65 hours a week for nothing extra, versus these places in the Midwest and probably down south as well. Like you're working much less hours, you're still getting phenomenal training, and you have the opportunity, if you wanted to still work 65 and 75 hours, but being fairly compensated for it. So that's just, again, I couldn't stress how important that is to just at least think about and consider the cost of living, and again, maybe not top three, but have it as a priority, because you set yourself up for the long. You're trying to set yourself up for the long run. And the only other thing is, if you could afford to buy a house in wherever you go to residency, also consider house hacking. Like, if you have a fellow residents who need a place to stay, or even if you're connected with the area and local graduate students who are also going to school, if you buy a house, you have a 3-bedroom house and it's just you and maybe a partner, then consider renting out one of the rooms and then lowering the burden of paying the mortgage.
Thank you all so much for your answers. So you guys both mentioned about having, like, keeping in mind like where we choose to go to residency, stuff like that, considering cost of living, things like that. But while we were in school, and some of us live in some high cost of living areas, like I'm in Philly. So what tips do you have for managing living costs, living in like a city like this while we're still in school?
I am still surprised to this day because, like I said, I'm a non-medical person in my immediate family, my mom, my dad, and my brother. How many of y'all don't have budgets? Like, y'all don't know exactly how much you should know exactly how much money is coming in, whether it's from your refund check or your parents are helping out, whoever is helping you. Maybe you have a side hustle, social media. I don't understand how you want to be financially literate and you don't have a budget. I'm rich, and yes, I said it, and I have a budget. So I don't understand not having a budget. You can't tell me that you want to be financially literate and you want to build wealth and you want to be intentional with your finances and you don't know what's coming in and you don't know what's going out. You don't know how many subscriptions you have. You don't know how many charges. Amazon, like it's not pixie dust. It's not magic. You order it, they take it. Just because you don't look at the financial statement, you don't look at your bank statements, does not mean it's not happening. I need for you guys to have an actual budget. Um, you can do an Excel document, go old school with Excel. They got an app for that. Anything, but you have to start with the budget. If you don't know how much is coming in and how much is going out, I can't help you. Just like you coming to the doctor and you don't tell me your symptoms, but you want me to fix you, I can't help you. So let's start there. Building block is a budget. Once you have a budget, once you see everything that's coming in and everything that's going out, go through those repeated cycles, those subscriptions that you signed up for and forgot about. Let's get rid of those. There's an app for that, I hear now. But you need to be very, very conscious of where your money is going. If you want to plant a seed in the ground, you have to know where the seed is first, okay? So I can't tell you where you could do better at, what you're overspending on, what you need to be saving with if I don't know where the seed is at. So that's my number one advice. And I want to know, do y'all have a budget?
No, I don't have
I
anything to add to that.
I have a little budget.
Yeah, no, you definitely got to get on that strict budget. I think
I
when I
have an
first,
idea. I have an idea.
you got to get on that budget. When I first like started, I
She
definitely
got a
like gave that a,
concept of a budget.
you got you got to have more than the concept.
I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, but when I first started, like I definitely I was saying, all right, this is my income, this is how much money I'm making, this is this is my rent, or this is my mortgage, this is how much the past 5 months, this is how much I averaged for groceries, this is how much my average utilities have been. This is I always try to actually, one of the things at the top of that list also is how much money I'm going to put away every month. Like this is how much money I have to put away every month, because I like the idea of always trying to pay myself first. But that's just something that I just did personally. But this is how much money I'm going to put away every month, and I made sure to put that away before anything else because I didn't want to cheat. I didn't want to cheat that part of the process. And then I like spending money, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna have $300 in just miscellaneous money, whatever I'm spending it on. I'm limiting it to $300, and so on and so forth. But accounting for every single dollar that's coming in and going out. Um, but that was really helpful in like propelling my journey.
Thank you guys for that. I'll start working on my budget. But another question we have is about like emergency funds and savings. So what would you say is like a general amount, or maybe like a percentage that you think somebody would need to save as an emergency, and how can you start building it?
So at this point in my career, I base it on the time it takes for me to credential. So I'm a traveling anesthesiologist. I do contract work for hospitals. Like I don't work for individual groups. I do staffing contract for hospitals. And it takes generally between 60 and 90 days to finish credentialing. So the only cash that I keep on hand is enough to pay my bills or so forth, or in my business account, personal accounts is about 3 months of cash. Everything else is invested. But I also am knowledgeable about what kinds of investment. Like I know it's invested, but I know there are certain investments that have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. If I need it, I can get it. I know that there are retirement accounts that I can might as well forget about because the tax penalty is just not worth it. That money doesn't even belong to me. I would it doesn't exist. It's there. It's a part of my net worth, but it's not a part of my budgeting or my emergency funding. My emergency funding consists of 90 days cash on hand to pay my bills if I were in between. And I haven't been in between contracts in almost 5 years. I've never ever wanted for work and didn't have it. But it's 60 to 90 days because that's how long it takes to get credentialed at a hospital, at a new practice. But other than that, everything else is in some form of an investment. But again, it's important to be knowledgeable about what kind of investments, because some of my stocks and bonds, it's literally a 24-hour. It's a call. I need this much, and it has to be liquidated, of course, and then transferred into my bank account. And then there are accounts that are part of my net worth that cannot be touched. So again, education is very important in the different vehicles that you use for investments. But cash on hand is not, to me, it's not, it's like your money not working for you. So I don't keep much cash. I don't keep much of my net worth in cash.
Yeah. For me, definitely not nearly at that stage in life yet. I try to keep like the same. I guess about the same thing, about 2 or 3 months of worth of emergency funds. I don't think I'm quite to that point yet, but still, also like still a student. So although we have the business, I don't think we've actually seen any money, or we haven't taken any money from that business in the 5 years we've been operating. So I really don't even really consider that. But I am doing the military's like HPSP scholarship, where they paid for medical school, and rather than me having to get a loan for living expenses, that's essentially what the military pays out to me for the year. So again, I just kind of budgeted off that, and with the rental property that I have back in Arizona, kind of adding all of that together, I probably do a little bit better than break even every month, and I've just been trying to build up that emergency fund. But as a student, I think it's good to have something in case something happens. I know sometimes, like for folks who get loans, like the loans don't dispense on time, and that kind of puts them in an awkward situation. So just kind of being mindful of having some kind of funds to bridge that gap until the next round hits. And then of course, if like things come up with family, it's good if you can contribute a couple dollars. But I feel like it's hard, definitely hard as a student to build up a large reserve of emergency funds. But if it's possible and you can budget it out correctly, it's nice to have.
Thank you. And so I'm going to just ask a question that I just saw in the chat. So the question is, what would you say was the most difficult part of starting, I guess, your financial literacy journey, and how did you overcome that?
I think the hardest step for me was actually like building out the plan. And it depends on, like, if you're asking me at one point. Just getting started is like literally setting a goal. Like setting a goal that in 6 months I'm going to put away, which may not be much to anybody. I'm going to put away $300. And actually, when I first set that very, very small goal, I put away $300 literally. I don't even use cash anymore, but I literally saved $300 in cash in my apartment, which was probably not very smart, seeing as I lived in Southeast DC. But just setting that first goal, achieving that first goal, and then I'll even share not having a plan after I reach the goal. Like, I did it. Yeah, I got 300. Now, what did I say I was going to do with this? And I ended up, my mom was like, if you don't get that cash out of the house, go put that in a house. If you don't do anything else until you decide what you're going to do with it, at least go and put it into a high interest saving account, which soon got transferred to a money market, which eventually got invested. But once I knew I could do this, that set me up on a monthly goal, like he said, to save and pay myself first. So whatever money, and I always had a detailed budget. Sometimes the budget was negative, sometimes it was positive, but it made me more disciplined once I had a savings goal of what I wanted to put away every month. And it started small. It really did. Started with a $300 goal, a $500 goal. I think probably that first 1 to 5,000 is the hardest thing to do in life, but it's so rewarding to see it, to literally watch it and see it grow. Um, and learning not to look at investment balances every day, once a month, once a quarter, have faith. Um, Keep the lines of communication open with your financial advisor. They got an app for that. Most banking, investment, institutions, Robinhood have great apps for that. You don't need to check it every single day, but set monthly, quarterly goals. Make them as small as they need to be, but meet them. Meet them. And when you're meeting them consistently, raise the bar. But getting started, that first initial step, because you feel like you're already sacrificing so much and you feel like you're stressing yourself to sacrifice even more to save. But once you start hitting those goals, it is rewarding.
I'd say for me, the first part was just the education. Like I mentioned, I had no idea that these tools even existed. So I used to keep at least, I think at one point I had at least like $5,000 cash in my house because I didn't trust the banks either. And listen, it's one of the biggest regrets of my life, Dr. Hall, all right, that I didn't, but I just I had no idea what the stock market was. I had no idea that was something accessible to me. Again, I had no idea how to go about real estate or starting a company, no idea between the differences between an LLC and an S Corp and all of these things. So I just didn't have access to that information. And so like once I found out that it was out there, I made sure to, and I still like even now, because I never pretend to be an expert for anyone, but even now, like I'm consistently watching videos or reading something when I have like some spare and free time, trying to consume as much knowledge as I can about the different avenues that I could take. One, it's like really interesting to me personally because I want to help people who also don't know about these things, like and let them know that it's out there because in my experience I learned that I'm not the only one that didn't grow up with that kind of background. So I'm still learning, still trying to still trying to learn all the different investment opportunities that are available to me. So that was the biggest hurdle that I faced. But once I overcame that hurdle, then the next step was coming up with that plan and figuring out, okay, how am I gonna or how are we gonna try to take what we learn and apply it. And I'm still in that process of applying it now. Looking forward to actually getting paid in residency, and then for the business to take a new dimension as well. But that definitely that education part was the biggest hurdle.
I have one recommendation. You mentioned Robinhood before. An app, a platform that I recommend that beginners get involved with is Fidelity. And I'll tell you my reasons why. Is the multitude of financial products that Fidelity offers. They're online, but they also have physical locations in certain areas. But they're educational tools as far as their videos and their research that you can do on different stocks, ETFs before you even decide. They have a self-propelled investment platform as well as financial. They have different levels. Like you can do it, you can use it like a Robinhood and do your own investments. They have financial planners and advisors. They have IRA, they have retirement vehicles, they have investment vehicles, they have annuity vehicles. They have a multitude of vehicles that you can grow into as your career grows and your net worth grows. But what I think is most invaluable are their education. Their free webinars. We're very much so like a YouTube site. They have videos that are so educational as far as explaining to you what these different investment vehicles are and how they could be useful to you at different points in your career and different levels of your net worth. So I recommend, I know Robinhood has very great reviews, but that's why I recommend Fidelity, because I feel like it's more of a platform that can grow with you throughout your career.
Is that the one? Is Fidelity the one with the Think or Swim platform?
Is that Thinkorswim? I'm honestly not sure.
I think it is because I believe it is, but that is also the platform that I use to kind of learn about all of these different about stocks, options, ETFs. I'm pretty sure it's
They have
Fidelity.
wonderful free webinars. Like even when if I'm on call or I have a free moment, they have, because I'm more towards gearing towards retirement or passive income, or I don't want to get up and have to go to work phase of my life. I love the educational tools that I've learned about financial tools, from universal to all the different kinds of life insurance and other retirement vehicles, and all of these things that I thought I was well versed about, but still learning new things every single day.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for all of your insight. We are wrapping up this session because we're getting close to 9 o'clock, but our final question would just be, what is one key takeaway that you hope the audience would leave with after this panel?
It's nowhere near as hard as medical school. Saving is nowhere near as hard as medical school. Being a physician is, I don't think, and this is just my person, it's nowhere near as hard as medical school. You're doing the hardest work right now. You can do it. You're going to be great. You're going to make money. We still need you. There's a shortage. We haven't done anything to fix it. And I can't wait for you guys to join the workforce.
I would say get that credit card, get that budget going, look into that IRA, and get that financial advisor. And please don't buy a brand new expensive car. I think that's the five highlights that I
Get the budget before the credit card, and get you a credit card that's going to do you some good. If you're a traveler, you should have a credit card with travel rewards. If you like to eat out, you should have a credit card with some cash back on your dining out experience. Go get the specific credit card that's going to benefit you most. And I'll put this career hack in it. So like I said, I'm a traveling physician. Whenever I book my travel, I always ask the company to reimburse me and allow me to book my travel. So I have brands that I have loyalty accounts with and cards with. Like I have the Chase United card. I fly United because I'm in Houston, and Houston is a hub for United. And I love Hilton brand products. So I book my travel. I fly United. I book Hilton. I pay for it. They reimburse me. I pay the card off, zero balance at the end, and millions of points. That's what I use for my leisure travel. So my work pays for my leisure as well.
No, these are gems. Thank you both so much for all of your advice and insights. We really do appreciate it. And so that just brings us to the end of our panel. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you on our next one. Bye, everybody.
Dr. Hall, it's good to meet you. Rachel, it's good to meet you also.
Can you share his contact? Can you put all of our contact information in the email? Because I definitely need to follow up with this young man.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Have a good one.